while since we recorded, and so
Yes.
and then since we've seen this movie, I feel like I should have seen it a second time before I gave it.
You know what? Maybe you're right. Maybe I should have seen it a second time too. And it's funny because like the night we saw it, sitting in the theater, I was feeling like I had a bad headache coming on, and I'm like, I think I'm getting sick. Like I think I have a cold coming on. And literally the next morning, I was like, it was one of the most sore throats I'd ever had in my life. So I was like, ugh. So even if we had tried to record the next day, it wouldn't have worked. I would have sounded like Batman on his worst day. I would be like, this movie's really. So count your blessings, folks, that did not happen.
Oh man, but what a ride. Honestly, this movie, I think this was the movie that kind of really reinvigorated fans, for the superhero genre. Like, I'm just gonna say it right out of the gate. Like, I don't like. Obviously, the one thing we don't need to say is how amazing it is, because the movie speaks for itself. But what I will say from an MCU perspective and like an MCU fan, I was getting tired, and I was getting worried that that the formula was getting really stale, and they were trying things that just weren't working. So I needed something that was just like, knew what it was, and yet still found a way to kind of reinvigorate the formula and just give you a big refreshing feeling. And that's exactly what this movie set out to do, in my opinion. It was a really refreshing movie to the MCU.
And I think I could be wrong, but I don't think we have said the name of the movie we are talking about. What is the movie we're talking about? And who are you? And what is the
Oh
podcast?
my God, that's true. Yeah, it's always the little things. It's always the little motions that we have here. Yes, so today we're talking about Deadpool and Wolverine. I mean, based on already what we're talking about, great Marvel movie. I mean, we're not talking about the Kraven trailer that just launched today. But we're talking
not talking about the Kraven trailer.
I know you're craving it.
Whoa!
What's up, everybody? My name is Ryan J. Marvel, and that's not my real name, but Ryan J. Whitehead here. And with my boy, Fantasia, co-hosts. Actually, it's his show, really. I'm the co-host, really. But
there is no my show. We are co-hosts, my friend. We are Scrooge and Marley.
Was it Statler and Wardoff?
And I mean, we are two Canadian boys, so really we are Deadpool and Wolverine. There's probably 1,000 Marvel podcasts out there, but you have the privilege of listening to the one that is pretty much almost a reenactment of Deadpool and Wolverine, because come on, right? One of us is a very handsome Canadian guy with great hair, and the other one is like a Canadian guy with no hair. Just like Wolverine.
Equally as handsome.
Equally as handsome. Hey, I get Marina Baccarin, so I'm not complaining.
There you go. I get a few different ladies.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
Oh man, but yes, today we're talking about Deadpool, Wolverine. Just an incredibly refreshing Marvel movie experience that in my opinion, was desperately needed. To really kind of shake up the fans and get them excited for, remind them what's exciting about Marvel films. And yes, there's a good story, but the fun you can have in these films is really where it's at. And this movie just hands it out like crazy.
Oh yeah. It promises a ride and it delivers on a ride. It's like, the build-up felt like being in one of those super long lines for a theme park ride. And you're like, man, I've been in this line for a long time. My feet are starting to get sore. This ride better be worth it. It better not be like 5 minutes of just like, ooh, I'm on a bump and then it's over. And thankfully, it was one of those rides where it was worth it. Where you tell people afterward, stand in that line as long as you have to, because the ride gives you what you wait for.
I couldn't agree more with Meeple Monkey in the chat, just being like, let's go, just really delivering that, that oomph, right? Oh, just awesome.
Now, first thing off the bat, I think the biggest takeaway, and I frankly, I'm going to be completely honest with everybody right now, including you, Ryan. I normally have like a page full of notes when we do this, but because of like how the summer's been and work and everything, I really only have like 2 notes about the movie. So I'm going to be winging it tonight in a very Deadpool-esque fashion. I'm just going to be all over the place and like, hey, blah, 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 cocaine, blah, blah, blah. So the biggest takeaway for me with this film, and I want to know what you think of this, and I take this away not as a negative and not even really as a positive either, just like, oh, this just is what it is. Cool. And that is that this ended up being, at the end of the day, 95% a Fox Marvel movie and only about like 5% an MCU movie when you really look back at everything it gave us. And again, I don't say that as a bad thing, and it's not a complaint, and I don't say it as oh, thank God it ended up that way. It's just that is how it ended up, and I'm curious if you agree with that, or like if you disagree, and if you do agree, like how did that make you feel coming out of it?
So that's a great conversation point that you bring up, because the interesting thing about this movie is, it's still, if we lived in the world of Fox and Marvel, it would be still a Fox movie over an MCU one. Do I argue it's an MCU film? I do, because the TVA plays a significant portion, and the TVA is an MCU concept. So that's where I would lean in the argument. If I had to take a stand and pick a side, I definitely think that, because it's definitely the TVA that, connected to the Marvel world.
Yeah.
But it has its fun. It has its fun by living in the Fox side of things, or I would say Fox and technically other properties, because not all properties were Fox. There was a character or two that were not Fox. So but I would say it was a wonderful, I see kind of what you guys are saying in the chat. It's kind of like a nice, passing of the torch,
yes,
kind of thing. And one thing I have to say before, not to jump around the whole movie here, but definitely the credits kind of reminded me to kind of look back at the Fox properties as like, foundational pillars. You know what I mean? Like, sure, as a Marvel fan, are they all amazing films? No, we've done our Infinity rewatch. In fact, we're still going through our X-Men side of it. And to be fair, in my opinion, I don't like them all. And there are flaws. And I'm sure Kevin Feige would say the same. I'm sure, Uncle Feige would be like, hey, like, these aren't perfect films. And but seeing them having the fun that they did with the behind the scenes shots during the credits was a really kind of nice reminder of the journey that brought us to this point. And it works really well, because like I said, like when you have these big corporate mergers, or you have these kind of shifts in who's leading projects and stuff like that, it takes time to really see the effects of it. You don't see it right away. So, we've been going through kind of this up and down thing through the multiverse stuff. And it's kind of like, there's been a shift in like how they want to do things, right? Because they're moving out of the guy who was running Disney before, and back to Bob Iger, and then making the decision to reduce Marvel projects. So we're kind of I think we're kind of finally seeing the big shift here. And the beauty of the Deadpool Wolverine movie that it's kind of fitting so nicely in is that it's showing us that's like, get ready for, another shift. You know what I mean? They're shifting gears a bit. And it's perfectly timed to say like, hey man, just thank you, Fox properties. We had our fun. We learned a lot, and and now we give you this wonderful experience. So it was a good time.
Oh, somebody please make a new edit of the Deadpool and Wolverine movie where it just ends with Ryan saying, "We learned a lot," and then with a picture of Dr. Doom from the Fantastic Four movies. I personally really like how the film straddles the lines, how it really feels like a giant Fox movie that slowly fades into an MCU film. In fact, so much so that I literally, the perfect thumbnail, if you follow us and you know what our Infinity Rewatch thumbnails look like, the perfect thumbnail for this movie existed without me having to do any work. And Ryan, I just sent it to you right now, and I'm going to show it on screen for everybody watching live as well, because it just, I mean, how could this not be our thumbnail?
Yeah.
Right? Like it worked out beautifully.
We should put our heads on top of each character.
Oh, I wish I was that good at Photoshop.
No, absolutely. And that's like, so are you saying that you feel like it's a Fox film, or?
I feel like it is a song that a DJ is playing that is mostly a Fox film, but it's got like some remix in there of MCU rather throughout. And I think at the end of the day, it can, you know, if you're the kind of person who organizes them all on your shelf, I'm not, I do everything alphabetically, but if you're like, all my Marvel movies must go on a shelf together, I think you do that, right? Do you do that with your Marvel movies?
Oh, put them all on one big shelf? No,
I have
my Marvel wall downstairs where I am at right now. If I were to angle the camera, I have the shield, the hammer, and an Iron Man helmet on the wall.
Oh, that's right. And you have the box set as well. Yeah.
Yes.
So that's yeah. So I feel like if somebody was a stickler for keeping every MCU movie together, you could put Deadpool and Wolverine in there. But also, if they were a stickler for putting Fox movies together, they could put Deadpool and Wolverine in there. I think it just, no matter where you approach it, it fits. Just like Deadpool, right? He sleeps around with everybody. So I love that it did that.
No, absolutely. Yeah. And so what was, I think my biggest question to you was, and I think we talked about it a little bit before this movie, but what were you expecting? Like what was the biggest thing you were expecting? Was it just Deadpool, Wolverine? Like how close was this movie to your expectations?
That's a great question. I love that. I honestly didn't have a huge list of expectations. I expected Deadpool and Wolverine and lots of, you know, what that partnership would entail. I think if I was to say what I was hoping for, which is slightly on a different lane, I think I was hoping for pretty much what we ended up getting as well. I was hoping for a love letter to Fox, the ability to comment on the MCU in its current state using Deadpool as the mouthpiece. And the biggest thing I was hoping for, one of the biggest things I was hoping for was the little ears, the little Wolverine ears. And I think I got all my 3 wishes. Thank you, Genie, for granting those, because the movie really just, it delivered on all of those. What about you?
You know, what it hit home for me was it did give me my expectation, but it did it in a way that subverted my expectation. So it did it, but it subverted it in a unique way. And I say that because, you know, I've been recently, I've been going through arguably my favorite trilogy of the MCU, which is the Captain America trilogy. Been watching it right now, plus Falcon and Winter Soldier, which I'm currently watching. And the thing is that the biggest thing I always want is a ton of characters interacting with each other. Like I want, like the first episode of Echo, exactly what I wanted. You know, tease of Kingpin, then you got Daredevil just jumping in, coming out. Like it's like the games. Like you need characters flying in and out, left, right, and center, because you know all the best Marvel comics is always like this kind of explosion of color, but each color is a superhero, and they're all just constantly overlapping. And that's like one of the big things I love about Civil War is like you're polluted by the amount of characters there are, but there's still a cohesive story. And that's also what I love about what the Russos did with not only Civil War, but like, the Avengers films, right? Like they tell an amazing cohesive story, but there's so much overlap of characters interacting with each other, and I love that. And that's the biggest thing I was hoping for with Deadpool is like either I wanted Deadpool to run into a ton of MCU characters and like finding ways to reinvigorate them or have fun commentary with them, not only seeing them in the movie with Deadpool's story, but at the same time, having commentary to the fans being like, Captain Marvel's not around. And then Deadpool's like, oh, what a shocker. Like kind of like one of those things. But I got that, but I got it in a completely different way, which we'll get to. And then the other big thing is I love what MCU does best. And to be fair, I think they actually did it the best in Deadpool, in my opinion, is the comic book references. And like if it makes you go, oh, what's that comic? What was the comic book reference of that? And I can tell you what it is, and then you'd be like, oh, that sounds really interesting, and you'll want to go read it. You know what I mean? Like that.
Right.
Despite comic books not being as prevalent as they are, today, I still think that Marvel should be doing that because it makes you want to. If it even gives you that feeling of wanting to check it out, then they've done their job because you want to explore more of Marvel and what Marvel has to offer, right? So it's when it's done right. Star Wars has been doing it for the longest time, but the best part is Star Wars had the toys, and George Lucas was totally smart for that. Is like if it makes you go, I want to see more of Star Wars, and then the first thing you see is the toy, and then you get more story about how in depth the character is in that story, like in the movie, they may have had one scene like I got the death sentence on 12 systems. You read about it in the toy, and you really figure out the depth of the character. So it's really cool to have that effect. And now again, do people go out buy Star Wars toys as much anymore? I'd say it's actually happening more now than it did before, but it's happening. And if a Star Wars story is making you go to do something else within Star Wars, then they've done their job. I think personally, where Star Wars shines brightest is when you watch the movie and then you're like, man, oh, where can I get more Star Wars? And then you find out there's a game that can get it to you or a TV show that can give you that. I think Star Wars thrives on the multimedia side of things. And I think they could do more interconnected stories with video games. Because like Jedi Knight's one of my favorite stories of all time with Kyle Katarn, and it's so beautiful. And if I saw Kyle Katarn in the movie, and I'd be like, "Oh my god, this character's amazing," and someone's like, "Why?" Well, let me tell you, his game is incredible. Like this guy literally, technically was born a Jedi and totally just lived as a smuggler until his father died, and it forced him back into the world of the Jedi. Like it's the best story ever. So that's, to me, when Marvel does it right, that's the feeling that you should have walking out of it. Is like, why was Wolverine strapped to the Giant X? And it's like, well, actually, that's a great comic. You should check it out. And it's that story that you want to get involved in.
That's a great point. And I did ask that question because I wasn't 100% sure. I think that's from Age of Apocalypse. Is that what that's from?
No, it's not Age. There is an Age of the Apocalypse reference, but it's not the one you're thinking of.
Okay, so what's the Giant X? What is that?
The Giant X is a Wolverine story. I think it's kind of, oh my god, this is gonna bother me. But see, it's already doing its job. You asking these questions is doing its job. I can't remember right now, but if I'm not mistaken, it's a story where essentially Wolverine is outliving the X-Men. Like he's getting too old. It's like transition to old Logan kind of thing. So
okay.
If I'm not mistaken, I could be horribly wrong. Comic book fans, please don't come to kill me. But you can look up, again, there are other great YouTube channels you should also check out that actually go into way more depth about the comic book references that are in there. But in my opinion, just seeing the way those were presented were just beautiful. Amazing.
Well, every intro of one of those Wolverines that he goes after, every one of those intros felt like an intro page in a comic too. Just
most of them were.
Oh wow, there you go.
Were, yeah. No, Old Man Logan, one of the early panels is he's sitting in a rocking chair and he's all old and stuff, and he shoots somebody with a shotgun. So so it's like that played out exactly like that. I mean, you have the introduction comic of Wolverine where he fights the Hulk, and they did that. It was just amazing. It was so good. And so like it was the best, in my opinion, the best way to like tease a comic book moment. Like they did it in Moon Knight, actually. They did it a couple times in Moon Knight. They actually, and what I like too is they put in a QR code where you could scan it and you get the comic to read,
right,
to follow up with it, right? But they did the moment where he's like, they took the desert scene after what's his name? Man, my brain is just not with it today. But they talk about the villain. They talk about the origin story, and they literally hit the point where he's like pretty much dead in the desert. And then Khonshu turns him into Moon Knight. It's like it was the perfect comic book nod, in my opinion. And with Deadpool and Wolverine, man, they just, it was hit after hit after hit after hit. There were like 6 scenes back to back that were like, oh my god. Like the short Wolverine is just a nod to Wolverine's comic accurate height, which is really funny. So that was it was amazing.
I want to spend more time in that world and see that little Wolverine running around stabbing people. So I like this fast and loose way we're going about this. Let's keep it up. So instead of our usual thing where we're walking through,
we just go beat by beat.
Yeah, we just kind of go by sort of our feelings here. So here's a question for you. Mm-hmm. What, in this giant bag of surprises that was Deadpool and Wolverine, what was the biggest surprise for you?
Oh man. Well, first I'm going to throw up spoilers in case, I assume at this point, because of the time of the recording, if you're a fan, you've seen the movie. And if you're not, then that means you probably don't care about spoilers.
I think Blake Lively's watching. She said she hasn't watched it yet. She'll get around to it when it hits streaming.
Actually, there's a really good, I have a side note I'll cover on that. Remind me to talk about that, but there's a note about that. To me, the biggest surprise, and spoilers one last time, you're being warned, but like I said, I think with our audience, you would have seen it like pretty much the same night we did. The biggest the surprise to me was Blade. Blade was I was kind of expecting Chris Evans, and I loved the subverting expectation technique they did there with turning him into the Human Torch. I love that, and it was just made my heart fill with joy. Was it like the biggest surprise? No. Was I still surprised? Yes. But Blade, I was not like, nowhere on the radar was I expecting Blade in any capacity in any way. Like I wasn't expecting it, and it was the best payoff. It was perfect. The humor was there, and like a lot of people were talking about it because in real life, Wesley Snipes in the third movie, he didn't like the next generation. Like he didn't like Ryan Reynolds' humor, so he didn't like Ryan Reynolds. He thought he was really annoying, and all that. So in that movie, he was like half, like 1 foot in the door, the other foot out. Like, you know what I mean? Like he was checked out pretty early on. So like Ryan Reynolds like went on to say like, oh, you didn't like me that much, and you didn't, we didn't like each other, that kind of thing. And yeah, to have Blade, which one could easily argue that the first 2 Blade movies are like, that's how comic book movies should have been done. Like, you know what I mean? Like they were among the foundational pillars where it's like, okay, that's a good comic book film. Like this is how you do it. And so it was amazing. So having Blade, and then of course Gambit was, oh man. Oh wow. I was not expecting that either, but so that's what it kind of relates back to my earlier point, which was like, I wanted a lot of characters. I just didn't get the ones that I was thinking about. Like I wanted to see She-Hulk.
Same here.
I wanted to see She-Hulk because she fits the perfect kind of narrative with Deadpool. So yeah, that's the big thing I was just not expecting, and it was wonderful. I loved every second of it.
So good. Yeah, She-Hulk was was sorely missed. I really thought she was going to sleep with Deadpool at some point. I thought that was just a match made in heaven, but that's okay. They'll save it for Deadpool 4, Attack of the Killer Pomegranate. I don't know. So biggest surprise for me, I will say Gambit was a runner-up, and not the appearance of Gambit, but the big surprise with Gambit for me was the fact that I had no idea Mr. Channing Tatum could do that good of a Gambit voice. Like he walked in and I'm like, oh, cool, Gambit. We kind of had flirted with the idea of seeing him, but hearing that perfect Gambit voice come out of Channing Tatum, that's definitely a runner-up for me. Like that was something special. But my biggest surprise, I think, just the sheer delight that the surprise gave me was the seeing. There's no other way to put this. Seeing Deadpool desecrate Logan's grave and then kill a bunch of fools with his bones. That was, I mean, we have seen at this point so many different forms of Wolverine. Even if you don't count this movie, like we've seen Logan in his street clothes, we've seen him in the black X-Men outfit, we've seen him as Weapon X, we've seen him with like 70s hair. We've seen so many different flavors of Wolverine now. We've seen Old Man Logan, but now we also get to see skeleton, like just adamantium skeleton Wolverine. It's like they are giving us every version possible, and that as an opening number with just adamantium bones killing people with NSYNC happening. I mean, talk about a way to get people pumped and get them in the right mood for your movie. I had no idea that was how they were going to start us off, and what a bang it was.
Honestly, it was. I love that intro. I love that it's. I mean, as an action movie buff myself, like I love like how they started that for sure, and the awesome feeling that scene gave was just phenomenal. Like, you know what though, like Deadpool, surprisingly enough, for like I've always said this, for a character who is so scatterbrained when you read the comic about this character. For him to always go into these stories being like setting the tone, being like, hey, this is a movie about, love. This is a movie about, family. This is a movie about family. This is a movie about friendship. You know what I mean? Like he always starts the movie giving you exactly the tone of the entire thing. And then it's like everything that happens, no matter how ridiculous, it's about friendship. Yes. You know what I mean? And it was so good. It was the bye, the dance, the fighting. I have to say though, the one thing that stood out to me during that fight scene is the one thing that stood out to me was the CG moments. There were some moments where you see some enhancements of the, like how Deadpool's moving and stuff like that. It looked amazing. Like, I don't know how to describe it. Like, it looked refreshingly new and good. Like, sometimes CG, there's still a disconnect. This time around, the blend was so seamless. And I didn't feel a disconnect moment. Like, the way the Wolverine, when the credits would come through as he's fighting and everything, it was so clean. It was so good. And it really fit just the overarching cosmetic of the movie.
Oh, I like that. That's a cool compliment to hear for a movie these days. I like that. I'm glad that was smooth for you. I'm in the minority. I am 100. Like CGI always works on me. I have never watched a movie and been like, that CGI was crap, except like the Scorpion King. Like I don't know what it is about my eyes, my brain, but you could be the crappiest CGI artist, and I'll be like, wow. Like it all works on me. I am a crappy computer designer's dream come true. The names and the bones, everything there was just a glorious way to start off a movie. Do you feel, aside from She-Hulk, do you feel that there was any kind of gaping absence in this film, whether it's of a character or of a plot point or a theme or something like that? Was anything missing for you?
I would say I want to say yes, but I can't say it. I just can't.
Mhm.
I mean, because like for example, oh god, I always forget her name. Spectrum. Spectrum. I think it's
Yep.
Spectrum. We had that what was arguably one of the best end credit sequences for Captain Marvel, obviously in the Marvels, and she's in that new X-Men world,
Right.
and that could have been a really good tie-in moment, but I can't say that because I think I think the greater arc here is the TVA and what that means and where that's going, especially after Loki season 2. And of course, the other thing, and this also is because I think this is also because with the whole they're abandoning Kang story, I don't know where they're going to go now and how they're going to do it. Obviously, I know it's Secret Wars. I don't need anyone to jump off the computer and slap me in the face and tell me that like, look, did you check D23 and all that stuff? Yes, I saw Comic-Con. I saw D23. I saw all the announcements. Yeah, some of which is very debatable. But I still think there's a very big use for the TVA. And this is why I can't say there are any gaps missing because, especially with what they're going to do with the Fantastic Four, I think the TVA is still going to be ever present. I just don't think Kang's going to be in the driver's seat. I think that TVA is just going to be a self-sufficient running bureau, kind of. And I think the fun of it is going to be is that the TVA will be like the Marvel creative team, like that kind of meta narrative that they're going to do. And the Fantastic Four are going to be set in a retro futuristic era of the 60s. So that will be interesting. And then I think obviously all the alternate universe jumping and time jumping to bring it all to Secret Wars, it's going to work. So that's why I don't feel like there's a gap. That's the thing. Yeah, like Domino Cable, like I wanted to see them, but again, at the same time, Deadpool movies, like with the characters that they unload on you, especially the second one, I feel like changing the roster is so fun and refreshing. Like you know what I mean? Like it was nice to have Domino and Cable, but like if you take a step back and what if the decision was if you get Domino and Cable, you have to take out 2 characters from the ones you saw. Who would you replace? Right?
Wow,
Like
yeah,
I feel like that was the conversation. Like this movie in the end, despite it being Disney's movie, it still has a budget. They still want to make an X amount of dollars past the budget. Now, of course, they're just crushing it regardless. But a Disney executive does not speak Marvel. So if you said to them, "Well, I want all these characters in it," they'll be like, "Well, how much money do you expect to make?" Well, I mean, it could make $1 billion. And they're like, okay, let's be realistic here. We want to make money for our shareholders. So I personally think, and this is going back to the long-winded answer to your question here, which is like, I still think that there are no gaps because the TVA is going to be the connecting piece. And Deadpool is just, again, Deadpool's world is pretty well isolated. So if you open that door too much, then you're going to be asking more questions later on. There's going to be bigger gaps later on. So I think it's just enough. And at the same time, it just shows that he's connected, and how you want that connection to play out later on, you still have control over it. There's nothing that is pinning it in a certain light that you can run with. Like, for example, Ant-Man, he is stuck to Kang. And now if you try to do something with Kang or Ant-Man, how do you circumnavigate Kang? You know what I mean? Because now they're tethered to that. But with Deadpool, there's nothing tethering him aside from the TVA. So really any story you want to go, which now makes sense after all these announcements, is like, okay, well, now it's like, okay, if Doom's the story they're going with and they're doing Doomsday, they just throw in Deadpool wherever they want. So because Deadpool's story is all wrapped in a neat little bow, and yet you still know that the present is still themed to whatever's related to the MCU.
I'm so glad you said that. I'm so glad you brought up the TVA as the connective tissue too, because I think we're on the same wavelength, and I think you sort of helped ease a little bit of my pain just now, Ryan, because I am strongly in the camp where, God, I really wanted to see them follow through on Kang, like so much. That Quantumania post-credit scene, to me, was one of the most exciting post-credit scenes in Phase 4 and 5. And Phase 4 and 5 have had some kick-ass post-credit scenes. But that whole, just seeing the council, seeing Immortus, seeing Ramatut, it made me so excited for the prospect of the Kang dynasty and what that would mean, and the idea of so many Kangs popping up every which way. And now that it looks like that really is no longer happening, unless they pull like a beautiful surprise and just tie it up somehow, because it would be nice for them to tie it up somehow, right? It would be nice for them to acknowledge Kang in some way instead of just kind of leaving it as it is. But I really love that you put the TVA in a position of sort of the marrow holding these bones, or rather the muscle holding these bones together, because it's the next best thing, and it really springs from Kang in a way. So if the TVA does maintain that position throughout the rest of the Multiverse saga, then I will feel much less like Kang has been a wasted opportunity. I'll feel much less like we are getting the scraps, the plan B of their story. Because that really, for me personally, Robert, I love you, dude, you're great. But the whole big thing of like, Robert is doomed now, and it's doomsday now, that reeks to me of plan B. That reeks to me of, oh crap, Carrie Fisher's dead, so The Rise of Skywalker is going to be a totally different movie than we planned, folks. Like it just had that feeling to it, and left me in this state of, I'm always going to be wondering what could have been. And I may still be wondering that for a long, long time. But if the TVA can sort of fill the Kang-shaped hole in my heart, then I think it will help ease that a little. Meeple Monkey brings up the Captain America Johnny Storm thing. I am usually those fake outs work on me in the same way that CGI works on me usually, but for whatever reason, and I don't know if you heard me in the theater, whatever reason, as soon as Chris Evans like showed up and started talking with them, I turned to the person next to me. I was like, "It's Human Torch! It's Human Torch! That's him! He's gonna flame up!"
Yeah, I heard you saying it.
It wasn't like me trying to be like, "Oh, I called it! I was literally just like, "Oh, wait, that's not like," just because of I guess the movie was doing a great job of putting the Fox world into my brain already. So I guess I was already thinking in that. Meeple Monkey heard me. I was really loud in the theater. And normally I don't talk in theaters, folks. That's a big no-no for me. So I promise I'm not going to make a habit of it. But
I heard you, but in my mind, I was with Deadpool. I'm like, oh, Avengers Assemble, let's go. Like I was waiting for that moment, and I was. They got me. They definitely got me in that moment. Sure.
And I'm sure Jessica Alba was there too. We just couldn't see her. Now, there have been rumors and whispers, I don't know how true they are, that a lot of this movie was reworked so that they could excise Kang, and that before the early stages, there was some Kang stuff happening. Have you heard that? Do you believe that? What do you make of that?
Do I think it's possible? Yes. Do I believe that it happened? No. Oh man, this is kind of hard territory to navigate. Because like, here's the thing. At some point during the planning process, I'm sure they talked about it, but I don't think anything was put in motion. And there's a very big distinction there of that.
Yeah.
what I did actually hear, and I heard confirmed, was Ghost Rider was supposed to make an appearance.
Oh,
Ghost Rider
cool.
was supposed to be in it, with Nicolas Cage and reprising his role and everything. But something like the idea just didn't gather enough traction and just kind of fell through. So, but the Kang thing is a little sad. I just don't know. I honestly I don't know how to I don't know really how to talk about it. Um,
Do you
I
know like what the context was? Did you hear what the context was that he was supposed to be involved in?
no.
According to what I read, it's very small. I don't even think we see him. But according to what I read, he is the one who killed the X-Men while Logan was off. And then so Logan is sort of living in fear of the idea of the multiverse because this multiversal guy is the guy who killed all his friends. So the idea of like, cool. Yeah, so it created this phobia of the very idea of hopping between worlds, which is kind of a cool concept for a movie that's all about doing that.
I think that I like it, but I in my mind I have a better version of how that played out that doesn't involve Kang, because like they're all about the yeah no I am all because like if you were to play the MCU interconnectivity angle as you would, then I would play out that in Wolverine's world the president was assassinated and therefore they caused the mutants to go extinct, and the X-Men at the time tried to live up to the Avengers, and that's why they wore the suits to represent heroism. But you know the anger of the Friends of Humanity and people wanting humans ended up wiping out all the mutants, and so that's why he doesn't like with the suits. He doesn't like what he's become, and he doesn't like being part of a team because he doesn't believe that the world needs a place for those kind of people and people that have these bright ideals and needs to unite together to to come together to face evil, that kind of thing. And I in my mind I like that story better because if Brave New World plays out the way I hope it does, then that is going to give the reason for the mutants to finally enter the MCU.
Yes, that is right. And you talk about suits, and I mean, I think that's the perfect way to just dive into the whole suit of it all, because the suit is a key player in this movie.
Yeah.
And how fantastic was it that the yellow and blue suit was not only just there for us to enjoy on a visual standpoint, but it was a big part of the plot and a big part of Wolverine's character development. That he refused it, and now he's wearing it because he feels bad about it. Like, oh my god, perfection! That is
that's the writing I always expect from these films, is like like why they do what they do, and the moral conflict. I crave moral conflict, whether it's internal or external. Moral conflict, if it's written well, it is the most enjoyable thing to watch, because everyone who watches it takes a side of that experience, right? And whether or not whether or not you win or lose, there's still a takeaway that you have from it. Like, why did this person lose? Because I agree with them. You know what I mean? Like I'm saying it in the most layman terms way, but like, you look at the X-Men cartoon and you see what happens, and the beauty of Xavier and Magneto and their opinions and stuff. Like, the best example of this is 97 and how everyone accepted X-Men 97. Why? Because the whole thing was moral conflict. The whole story was moral conflict on such a scale. It's so beautiful. And so, yes, I agree with the suit being a character in the story and what happened to Wolverine, and he wears it because he regrets not really embracing it before, and this whole thing. It's so good.
Moral Conflict was my favorite fighting game on the Sega Genesis.
I think you're talking about
Conflict.
Yeah, but it's true if you think about it, because like if it's done right, you know, that's what made Star Trek: The Next Generation one of the most enjoyable shows for what it was, because every time there was an episode that involved kind of a moral challenge with Picard, you ate it up. You ate every minute of it, because it made you go like, it made you like connect and be like, well, do I agree with this or do I not? Like, you know, one of the most hilarious episodes to me, yet it stands out as one of the most enjoyable in terms of like story, is where they find this like Eden paradise. And in the end, the kid, oh my God, the names are just not with me today. The kid, he falls into one of Wesley. Yes, thank you. He falls into the garden, and their thing is like, well, he has to die now, and because he broke the one rule that you can't break, and that's it. And he knew it. He knew what the rule was, and it all happened by accident. And what makes this episode go from a laughing joke to like just amazing writing is right at the end, where Picard makes a speech about what justice is. And it's like, that's what we live for. That's the passion we live for. And yeah, it's the same with this war. Like, oh my God, you hit a note there. But like, it's the same thing with Wolverine. That scene where he's sitting by the fire and he's talking about Beast and all that, wanting him to wear the suit, and he's like, and they thought I didn't care, and the whole time it's because I cared too much. And it's like, oh, you live for that. Oh my God.
Yeah, those are always the best Star Trek episodes, is the ones with the moral conflict, where you really, and like, you could sit and just watch 45 straight minutes of just like Picard and someone else debating, and you're like, this is the most riveting television I've ever seen. And like somehow they manage to do that every single time. But on top of the moral conflict and the great character work built around the suit, they did a beautiful thing that I loved so much.
Yes, get into it.
It's a little thing that a certain other movie, I believe a 2016 movie called Power Rangers, did, where it made you the audience, it made you earn those Power Rangers suits. They didn't just slap them on the screen right away and say, okay, go Power Rangers. No, they were like, stop Power Rangers. On your marks, Power Rangers, get set, Power Rangers, go Power Rangers. And you finally get them to build up to the suits at the end, and it feels so good to get to that moment. And man, we all assumed the mask was coming, right? I'm sure there were people who knew it was coming because people find out leaks, whatever. I was not 100% sure the mask was coming. I assumed it was. But I was happily along for the ride with the yellow and blue, just as it is, without the mask. And then to have it come up, not only when it did at that climactic moment against all the Deadpools, but with the opening riff of Like a Prayer, literally because they are answering the prayer of every Wolverine fan who watched X-Men 97, or rather X-Men the Animated Series, and then having that be a thing, like just to kick off the fight and to essentially be the all the Avengers standing in a circle in Avengers Part 1 moment of this movie, of just it feels like home, and we all just lose our minds. We had to earn, first of all, we had to wait 20 years to earn that suit, 24 years. But
might have been a little long, but yes, definitely.
Yeah. But now we are also waiting the majority of the movie to earn the mask. And to finally see that and have it be up there on screen, it really is the equivalent of that Avengers scene. Because once the Avengers get to that point, and I will chisel this on my gravestone because I will believe it to be true to the end of my days. Once they get to that point where all the Avengers are standing together and Hulk has just said, "I'm always angry," and they're finally there ready to face some Chitauri. Really, the rest of the movie is just a celebration of what is happening on screen, and it's just hugging the fans and saying, "We made it. We're here. We're here. Let's all jump up and down." And that, to me, is exactly what that is. Putting on that hood, cranking up the Madonna, and just killing a bunch of Deadpools is just, it's celebrating itself. It's just like, "Come here, fans. Let's all hug. We made it. It's really happening. It's finally happening." So to earn that, I'm so glad they didn't just put the mask there willy-nilly. I'm so glad they didn't even show the mask beforehand, like off on a table somewhere. I'm like, the fact that they kept it completely hidden from us until "Feels Like Home." Boom, 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 boom. So, like, that is
quite the crescendo.
Completely. So now my next question for you. With this being the case, with this scene finally existing, we now have I was going to say comic accurate, but that's not entirely right. I'm going X-Men animated series because that to me is peak X-Men costumes. Okay. So we now have a animated series accurate Beast. We on the big screen in live action, we have seen animated series accurate Beast, animated series accurate Wolverine, and now an animated series accurate Gambit. And Professor X, thanks to Multiverse of Madness. Who do you, from that show, want to see accurate the most next?
Oh, man. Had Gambit not shown up, that would have been my first answer.
Because we really don't have anybody looking like they do in that show.
You know what? I actually do have an answer. A comic book accurate Storm.
Nice.
That would be, I mean, I would say we were so close, but just missed the mark with the X-Men Apocalypse one. Because I think she had the look, she had the guile. She definitely had the suit. Like the suit was a nice touch too. But I just like they were just the slight little things that were off that in the end made the whole thing off. But if we can get an X-Men 97 / comic book accurate Storm, I would. Oh my God. When I found out that the actor who played Queen Ramonda was originally going to be Storm in X-Men, she was originally going for it. And then they gave
Angela Bassett.
Angela Bassett was originally up, and she was runner up to Halle Berry on that.
Wow!
Can you imagine a universe where she got that role, and take the performance that you got from Black Panther and put that in Storm? What a world we'd live in! Oh my God, I can't even. My camera can't even focus.
Your camera's just going haywire because it's just thinking about.
Yeah, honestly, but like that's I would say Storm. It's like Cyclops, to be fair, the Cyclops we got in the movie was good. It's just his writing was like very one-dimensional.
Oh yeah, the writing is. I'm talking just strictly the way they look.
Yeah, I mean,
suit.
Yeah, James Marsden, I think it is. He had the look. He had the look, the build, the talk track down. Like, you just shift the costume, change his lines a little bit, you would have gotten yourself a comic accurate Cyclops. Argument could be made for Jean Grey as well, but again, like it was just the direction they were going for. But like in answer to the question, and I mean, you guys are welcome to put your answers in your chat as well, which I believe Meeple Monkey you're doing. But to me, Cyclops is a good character-driven experience, especially if you see Wolverine in the X-Men, which is a cartoon that happened after X-Men 93. And it was like at the peak of Wolverine, and at that point, people were just like, "I'll watch it." And for those that did, they were well rewarded. But for those that didn't, you actually missed out on some really good storytelling from Cyclops, which you actually ended up seeing most of it in 97. So in the end, is what it is. Yeah. But my point is that if I had to choose, the next character to get that kind of story, Storm would really just like help skyrocket. Cyclops, I don't think would hit as hard as Storm, in my opinion, especially after what we all saw in '97.
Right, '97 really scratched that itch. It scratched that itch for us. Mr. Anti-Idiotic, I will answer your Kitty Pryde question in just a second. But for me, the cartoon accurate costume that I need to see on the big screen in live action now, and it's got to go with the personality to match. Sugar, we gotta get Rogue. She's gotta look green and yellow, and it's gotta be the real Rogue. Sorry, Anna Paquin, you're a good Rogue. You're just not the good Rogue. That's it. You're just a different flavor. You're a different flavor Rogue. That's okay. But I want that accurate looking cartoon costume that we got, and that personality to match. I need to see that before I die. And probably Juggernaut as a close second. Just take exactly how he looked in Deadpool 2 and make him red. That's it.
There's a character you forgot to mention among the roster of characters that made a good comic adaptation into the films. Colossus in Deadpool. We got a X-Men '97 / comic actor Colossus.
That is true. You're right. He did look pretty good in the Deadpool movies. He had the red thing too, which was great. Like it was firing on all cylinders. They got it. Yeah. So Mr. Anti-Idiotic, I think who I would cast as Kitty Pryde if we're going with what you were saying about how putting her with Spider-Man, I think the best bet would be just cast an unknown, because she's a young character anyway. And I mean, I didn't know who the girl was who played Liz Allen before Homecoming, and she was great. I didn't know who Zendaya was before Homecoming. Now she's like arguably one of the biggest people in the world. So I would just go with a total unknown for Kitty Pryde. Just hire somebody young. Mm-hmm. If they actually have the ability to go through walls in real life, that would be an awesome plus. If not, we can work with that. They have a CGI company. We have not had a good Jubilee in Meeple Monkey. Jubilee # justice for Jubes. Like
That's a terrible hashtag. I'm sorry. Oh my God. Oh my, I hope that doesn't get viral. I really hope. Oh, that is terrible.
She needs it. She needs it.
Terrible name. Terrible name. This is so bad. Justice for Jubes. Why would you say that? Oh, wow. Oh man. Yeah. Well, I don't know what to say to that, so I'm just gonna move on. In answer to that question, I have someone perfect in mind. Just looking up the name if I can find it. Oh, I saw it. Yes. Give me 2 more seconds. There you go. Okay. The person I would cast is Kitty Pryde, especially right now because she's already working for Disney. She's been in a Star Wars project, which normally the two kind of bounce back and forth. Her name is Natasha Liu Bordizzo. She would be a perfect Kitty Pryde, in my opinion.
That's Sabine Wren. I like it.
Yep.
I like it.
Sabine, I love her on camera. She's great. She has great on-camera presence, and she just has that old Hollywood acting technique where she can tell a lot with just the eyes. The way she does it, and in fact, I think they joked about it in the Star Wars conferences. But she has that kind of badass look to her, and Kitty Pryde. But like in terms of the dimensions of the character, Kitty Pryde plays from kind of confidence, juggles between confidence and fear back and forth, and finding a middle ground there. And I think she would be able to do it really well. So Marvel. Kevin Feige, I know you're watching this show, man. You just need to talk to us, man. I know we're a lot personality-wise, but we're worth it. We're worth every minute of it.
What if he's been trying to talk to us this whole time, but he's using code, and we're just too dumb to understand?
Yeah, maybe. Perhaps he is. Maybe I don't know. Yeah, maybe he's been in the chat this whole time.
Mr. Mr. Anti-Idiotics has some picks.
Okay.
Rowan Blanchard, who I only just discovered because I just finished watching Girl Meets World over the past month and a half.
Rowan Blanchard. Oh, okay. Yeah, I see that.
Cool. Definitely got the look. I don't know. I was about to say she might be too old, but if you're going to pair her with Spider-Man, she's younger than Tom Holland, so she's not too old. She's totally fine age. Rowan Blanchard's cool. I like her.
Out of your two choices, I don't know Rowan that well. If I was basing it on like these pictures I'm seeing of each person in terms of just, the moments captured, I guess would be the best way to say it. I would definitely go with your second choice, Molly. There's a great black and white photo that I feel like definitely captures her character.
Molly Gordon. Let's see. I don't know who Molly Gordon is.
Yeah. I would, Mr. Anti-Idiotic, I would go with your second choice based on the options provided.
It's funny too, because I am so illiterate when it comes to Kitty Pryde. Like, really, the only Kitty Pryde that my brain has ingested was X-Men 3. I've never read a comic with her in it. I've never seen a cartoon with her in it. To me, Jubilee is my Kitty Pryde. I know they kind of swapped the two in the cartoon, so that's the reason why.
Well, I was going to say it's funny because in the comics, Jubilee's story arc in X-Men was essentially Kitty Pryde.
It's just Kitty, yeah. So I always think of the X-Men 3 version of Kitty, and I couldn't even tell you what she looks like, except I know from Marvel United that she's a brunette. That's it. So Rowan Blanchard fits. That Molly Gordon person fits. Awesome. I think there's a good chance we'll see her because she also is kind of underutilized in the Fox world. So you might get your wish there, my friend. I think that is all the big points, the big questions and points I wanted to touch on for myself. Did you have anything, Ryan, that you wanted to bring up or ask?
Just two more points before we kind of get to the wrapping up of this podcast, which is one is the Wolverine played by Henry Cavill. I thought, again, another great job. I'm amazed Marvel gets away with this, where they drop the lines like, "We'll treat you better than the guys across the street," which is funny because if you know your comic book history well, the Marvel office is always across the street from DC's office.
Was that a real thing?
That's a real thing.
Oh.
In fact, so during just pick any era between like the early 2000s and then go as far back as you like, they were literally across the street, and you could see if you go to in fact, maybe not as much today, but in fact, if you go to that street, in the windows you would see like the Batman symbol, or like you'll see like Marvel Comics, or you'll see Spider-Man from the window. And after a hard day's work of making comics, they would actually all go to the bar and talk about the characters they made or stories they did. And that's what, more often than not, that's why there are kind of weird off variant characters from like DC to Marvel, like Spider-Man, and then DC has like the Black Spider. Terrible example, but there are characters similar to that. Stan Lee was at the bar talking to one of the creators at DC, and they're like, "Oh, I bet you can't make a comic about a bunch of soldiers in World War II, and with a ridiculous name." And so Stan Lee went back and he came up with Nick Fury and the Howling Commandos.
So there, DC.
That's it, right? And then of course, like, you have the classic point in history where Jack Kirby went off to DC
Mhm.
and he helped create the New Gods and all that stuff and Darkseid and really did all that kind of stuff. So yeah, no, they were, so that comment, we'll treat you better than the guys from across the street. That's a jab at DC, which is really hilarious.
Yeah.
And my curiosity is, I know the running joke was with Deadpool and Wolverine was that Hugh Jackman was, or Deadpool was saying the movie, oh, you're going to do this till you're 90. But I'm kind of curious that what if that was a casting announcement that Henry Cavill is Wolverine? And it was like, literally, it was a test to see if was going to be well received as the character, to which he was.
Yeah, it could be. And I mean, one of the things, unless I'm totally just a dum-dum and everything went over my head, I found that the end of the movie was very ambiguous about where Deadpool and Wolverine, the characters, sort of live now. Because it seems to me like they have just a nice little quiet pocket of Fox friends that they just live with now. Mm-hmm. I don't think we saw Elektra or Gambit with them at their party, but we saw Laura. Thank you. We saw Laura. So it stands to reason that they might not be living in the same universe as our friends from the MCU. So it could very well be a case of like, sure, Cavill, sure, like they make the joke, you're going to be him till you're 90, but yeah, it could very well just be that their little pocket where they're having their birthday party is totally separate. I don't know. Maybe I am a dum-dum according to Rebel Scum. So,
well, and so the other thing too that I was, it's hard not to pick apart every little thing like this has happened before. Yeah, let's just blow up the real hero of this show, which is of course Fantasia. That's why we blow him up.
Oh, I don't know why that happened.
But a lot of people are picking apart what they're saying. But this was what was interesting about what Ryan Reynolds said, because a lot of people are saying, what does this mean for Deadpool and Wolverine going forward? And he's like, I think the movie speaks for itself, where really it's about protecting and honoring what we've built. And I couldn't agree more. Like, the X-Men franchise, was a bit all over the place before Deadpool came around. Deadpool came around and, I think it was Deadpool 2, Deadpool 1, they were still Fox. But Deadpool 2, I think, was the merger was like just as they announced it was happening.
Yeah.
It was happening. And so I think the movie does exactly that. It protects what was built and honors it. And at the same time, at this point, like I was talking about earlier, Marvel at this point can really just pick and choose how they want to bring them into the story with the TVA. Like, or at the same point, it's just like, that's a pocket world and it was fun. But remember, there are like these anchor beings now. And there was an interview with Kevin Feige where I think it was from Collider, where the host was bringing up like, oh, the anchor beings, like, is Robert Downey Jr. now playing an anchor being character for Doctor Doom? And Feige's very clever response was, I am very happy to hear that you're using the terminology anchor being. So that may play a role with TVA, thus could explain what we might see from Deadpool Wolverine going forward. In my opinion, though, I'm still kind of interested to see if this Henry Cavill casting, what if it is a stunt to see if, like, hey, if we do a casting in the future, could we throw them in here and like play it off as a fun cameo? But if they like it, we can keep it, right? Like, same with John Krasinski and Reed Richards. Like, the only difference is that John Krasinski went out and said, like, look, I'll do it for fan casting just to give the fans what they want. But I don't really want to do these movies. Like, I'm okay. He has Emily Blunt. What more does he need in life? But at the same point, like, Henry Cavill's a passionate, nerd fan character. So to have him play this character and then later on be like, oh, by the way, he actually is going to be Wolverine. Like that might be a big payoff in the long run. So who knows? The second thing I wanted to bring up was, of course, Blake Lively getting to play Lady Deadpool. And fun fact about that I'll leave us off here with is that when Rob Liefeld was designing Lady Deadpool, and the Lady Deadpool was almost going to be before Deadpool himself. He was kind of Rob Liefeld was playing around with character concepts, and his girlfriend. I don't know if it's his wife now or his girlfriend at the time. I can't remember, but she was watching Gossip Girl, watching Blake Lively, and Lady Deadpool is actually based on the design of Blake Lively.
Wow. Talk about full circle, man.
Yep, that's a huge full circle moment. So it's and that's in the end. That's why the big kind of overarching message I have with this movie as a comic book fan is this is what a comic movie should be. If you're starting to wonder what comic books they're calling out in the movie, and you like what you saw, and it still tells a really good story full of moral conflict, both internal and external, and you have all these comic crossovers. In the end, this is how a comic book movie should be. So it's a refreshing movie.
So with that being said, how many claws / Infinity Stones, because we could now go both ways, do you give to Deadpool and Wolverine?
You know, a lot of people are starting to say that the movie's a bit overhyped, but in my opinion, it's a perfect comic book movie. So I give it a Gauntlet with Wolverine claws coming out of it, and just the whole kit and caboodle. Like it's just for a character I don't like and have this much fun and still like able to dissect it as much as I can and love it for as much as I do. Yeah, it deserves the whole kit and caboodle.
I'm so glad we're bringing back the phrase kit and caboodle. Love it. I'm also going to give it X claws / an Infinity Gauntlet, because that to me really feels like the perfect way to tell this story. And this story is not a huge galactic epic story. This is not Fantastic Four. This is not Eternals, whatever. It's literally just a story of Deadpool and Wolverine making friends. And also tying in the fact that the Fox films have come and gone, and we've learned from them, as you so eloquently put it. But now we are turning into the MCU as our mutant base of operations, and all of that together. This is the perfect way to make that movie, to bake the cake out of that recipe of ingredients. So I don't think anything else could have been done to make this a better version of what it needed to be. Yes, I want to see Kang, but Kang does not make or break this story. Kang makes or break the multiverse saga, but he does not make or break this story. So for me, X claws, Infinity Gauntlet, beautiful.
X claws. Wait.
Ooh, Ryan's got props.
Got props.
Everybody who's only listening must feel so bad about themselves right now. Look at this. Oh,
X claws.
X claws. X. Oh wait, I'm mixing up my comic book franchises here. Is that made of Lego? Is that what that is?
Yeah, my brother got it for me. It's the
yes, that's right. Yeah,
X-Men 97 Wolverine claws. If I hold it here, it looks like it's my hand.
It does, and it can frighten off prowlers too. If you have a prowler, I don't know if you got many prowlers over there back in Hamilton, but you can just kind of open the door with that, and you can be like, "Hey, get off my lawn."
Well, there was I think a kid playing Knock Knock Run on my door last night. So yes, I should do that.
You should have followed him and been like, "Hey, bub, you think that's funny?"
Well, I think the joke's on them because we have a little water pipe outside our house that it leaks a small amount of water over a long period of time. So there's like a little puddle. Oh. So if they ran towards the tree, then they're going to hit a giant puddle.
So that's how to find your culprit. Look for the kid with wet pants.
That's it.
Right? You're going to find them. Well, that has been Infinity Rewatch for today. That has been Deadpool and Wolverine. We thank everybody so much for joining us. Ryan, where can people find you if they want to join you on other activities?
I'm still working on my YouTube stuff. It takes time to edit films, edit videos, but it's an intro video, so it's going to take me a little longer to build out because I want to do it right. But yeah, so stay tuned for that. But for now, you can support my work channel, which I would greatly appreciate because that's where I get paid. So definitely would be good to keep that going. So just go to youtube.com/Expert Zone if you want the latest content on all things Microsoft, especially gaming.
Very cool. And you can find me on here on the Digital Charcuterie channel, where I'll be talking a lot about Marvel United and DC Superheroes United over the coming months, because I'm obsessed with it. And Marvel United is supposedly not on the way, but close to being on the way to my doorstep, season 3 at least. And taking its sweet time. I don't have a shipping update yet, but I'm crossing my fingers it'll be here by the end of September. That would be nice. I don't feel like waiting any longer. And then, of course, DC United just blew my socks off too, so I'm looking forward to that. And then you can find me on Amazon with my fantasy novels, We Were Wizards. This is them. You don't need to see my face anymore. I'm going to block the camera from seeing me and just show you We Were Wizards for a few seconds. This is my fantasy novel series, and you can find them on Amazon right now in paperback or hardcover or ebook. And they're a lot of fun. They have swords in them. What more do you need? You know who else has a sword? Psylocke. You know who doesn't have a sword? Jubilee. Hashtag justice for Jubes. All right. So we're going to call it a night here on Infinity Rewatch. Thank you so much for tuning in. We will see you all here next time. And until then, please have a marvelous day.